Topaz and Numby have just released on Honkai Star Rail, and the biggest question everyone asks when they're unsure about a character is, should I summon? And well, that's why in today's video I'm going to go over exactly that. And to get to that conclusion of that question, I'll be going over whether she's actually good or not, and what her biggest positives and negatives are. Okay, so let's start with, are Topaz Numby actually good? And I think she is good and, has high damage output, but I don't think she's quite on the same level of some of, the other DPS characters that we've had previously released, like, your Dan Heng and Barbita Lunes and your Jing Liu's. But although I think, for a lot of people's current follow-up attack teams, Topaz and Numby will of course be your main source of damage right now, but I think with time, and once we get another follow-up attack based 5-star character that is on the levels of Dan Heng and Jing Liu, and can also use these follow-up attacks pretty often and consistently as well, I think Topaz and Numby will take up more of a supportive sort of DPS kind of role, like what, a lot of people's payloads do right now for a lot of people's teams. Now, this is because of Topaz's Proof of Debt, which makes enemies take up to 50% more damage from follow-up attacks if you have the talent up to level 10, which is also at E0, which will be, is kind of going to be what makes it go from just good to really good in the future when we get that other sort of follow-up attack 5-star DPS. And this being, this is one of the main reasons why, in my opinion, makes her, actually really good, is not only because she is just, a generally good character, is that she's going to be a character that you can use for a very long amounts of time and is, I guess, technically future-proof. And, if you don't know what I mean by that, is basically, I think because of her kit and the way she works, I think she's going to have a lot of longevity due to her, because of what she does with follow-up attack teams and making enemies take more damage from them. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to find a replacement for Topaz in the top-tier follow-up attack teams when, clearing on stuff like Memory of Chaos, making her pretty much, almost a must-have for those who want to, delve into follow-up attack teams and have them perform at the highest level you possibly can. So overall, I do think Topaz and Numby are good, and their kit is, I guess, generally good, but for me, what makes her great is that as an investment, she's going to be very, very profitable, and, definitely a profitable one at that, and, thanks to her being, I guess, the Kafka of follow-up attack teams, and her being, I guess, the enabler for follow-up attacks, and, also a lot of characters as well, as, because of her existence, she's also just going to make a lot of other characters become better, like your Herters, your Himikos, Jing Yuans, stuff like that, because, because also they all do follow-up attack damage, meaning she's just going to be a big benefit for all of those characters as well, making them even more valuable as well. Okay, so next up is, the next section is going to be, what are exactly, Topaz and Numby's positives and negatives, and I think we should start off with her negatives, as, I've already gone over quite a few of her positives in, I guess, the previous section, and, why she's actually good. So, I guess, to start things off with, I guess, the biggest negative for Topaz and Numby is that they are currently quite restricted in terms of what team comps you can put them in, and I think they're also a character that will always be sort of somewhat restricted to, the teams you can put them in, as outside of follow-up attack teams, I don't think she'll really have a place in other people's teams, mainly just due to her kit being very restricted to follow-up attacks, and, how she's just very supporting in follow-up attacks as well. Then I think her next, I guess, biggest negative is that she only really has single target damage and doesn't have any form of, AoE damage or blast damage or anything like that, which is obviously, due to her being off the path of the hunt, but, you got characters like Zila and stuff who can, do really, really well against multiple enemies, where she kind of suffers against multiple enemies, so it makes it pretty difficult, but I still think, this, again, brings her down, even though she is off the path of the hunt, and that's what she should specialize in. But yeah, I think this brings us down, still, because the best DPS characters in this game excel at, both doing AoE, single target, and also blast damage as well, and not just one of them, which for me, is never ideal, as, there are a lot of scenarios in the game, like Memory of Chaos, and now the new Swarm Disaster as well, where you're having to face off against like 3 to 5 enemies as well, meaning you could end up finding yourself having, a relatively tough time dealing with all of these enemies, as, at the moment, our only sources of AoE damage with follow-up attacks is like your Herters or your Himikos, and like Jing Yuans, Blades, etc., which, don't get me wrong, are, decent options, but I don't think they're the best options that we possibly could have, hopefully. But yeah, hopefully in the future we'll get something better, and hopefully the next follow-up attack character that release, which could be in many months time, but, we can only wait and see. Okay, so next up onto her, I guess, biggest positives, and just all of her positives in general, which for me is that, she is actually very, very skill point friendly, and, unlike, characters like Jing Liu, who are also very skill point friendly, Topaz doesn't ever take anything away from your team, and doesn't have, like, I guess, a cost for anything that she does, as, with her follow-up attack being counted on her basic attack and her skill as well, it allows Topaz to advance Numby's action forward with every, turn that she takes, and it will then not only allow Numby to do more damage, but it will allow your other skill point hungry characters, like your supporting characters, to maximize their potential as well, allowing you to maximize damage as well. Then with her follow-up attacks as well, she has, a massive amount of shield shield and toughness damage, which is always, you know, very, very good because you can delay an enemy's action and do a lot of, you know, break damage as well. So, you know, then you can also, you know, benefit off of break effect as well, which is always really handy. And when she's also paired with, you know, the likes of Asta, who's also really good at, you know, doing that same thing of shield and toughness damage, you can mince through all fire weak enemies in the game and, you know, make it very difficult for the enemies to do what they want to do, you know, allowing them to act, and also just, you know, giving them also a bunch of, you know, burns as well, which is also pretty cool as well. But it's never anything too crazy. But yeah, I think, you know, this is a big positive for Topaz Numby, as, you know, just delaying enemies' actions is always really handy. Then obviously, as I've, you know, I guess previously mentioned, is that Topaz and Numby are very, very future-proof thanks to her being an enabler for follow-up attacks, making her, I guess, you know, be able to be used for a long period of time, and, you know, will just never really be replaced, to be honest, unless if we get two, you know, really good follow-up attack DPSs that just completely replace her, which will not happen for such a long time, and maybe will never happen. We have no idea. So yeah, which is, you know, again, finally is going to make her, you know, really good. And then I guess to end it off with, she's obviously, you know, just a fantastic character when paired up with other follow-up attack characters like your Jing Yuans, your Claras, your Hertas, and Himikos. And, you know, again, this also ties into her just being an enabler, is that, you know, and also what I've previously mentioned is that she's just going to make all of these characters become better, and that's pretty much it, to be honest, because, you know, all these characters, I guess, you know, most of them that I've listed, none of these characters are like top tier, so who knows, maybe Topaz is going to make some of these characters be even better, and with her proof of that, making their follow-up attacks do even more damage, especially like Jing Yuan and Clara. Those two actually hit like really hard with their follow-up attacks. I think, yeah, that could also be, you know, a massive positive for Topaz and Numby. So overall, after going over all of that, and, you know, to do stuff with like her positives and negatives and her, you know, if she's actually good, I guess the question we gotta ask now is, should you summon for Topaz and Numby? Now, I think this is something that is actually a relatively easy decision, but it's also, you know, relatively tough. It's going to be a relatively tough decision for a lot of people, as I think what should determine if you want to summon for Topaz and Numby is if you actually just have the desire and want to use follow-up attack teams. As if you don't like follow-up attack, you know, teams and characters, and just want to stick to your, I don't know, like hyper carry teams, your damage over time teams, or just whatever other teams that you may have, then I'd say Topaz and Numby are probably not for you, and you should probably just skip them, because, you know, as you know, in 1.5 we're getting Argenty, which I think is how you say his name, who looks like he's going to be a pretty cool character, a nice erudition character. So you could then just say skip Topaz, summon for him, and get another cool DPS that you actually might want. But again, you know, if you are looking for you know, to use follow-up attack characters and teams, then I would say 100% yes, you can get her if you want. But you know, again, many times I've said before, she's going to be good for such a long time, and, you know, what's more important is just, you know, she's also just really fun, at least in my opinion, from when I've been using her, because I have summoned for her previously, and yeah, I find her really fun to use, and I think she's also just a really unique character as well. But where I think some people could find, you know, some difficulty in deciding is, I guess, if you're, again, you know, obviously, if you're just unsure whether you want to use follow-up attack teams and characters, because obviously at the moment we don't have a huge amount of options in terms of follow-up attacks, especially if you're new to the game, because with the game, you know, previously just now releasing on console, we're gonna have a big influx of players that are on console, so, you know, a lot of people haven't been able to get their hands on, you know, characters like Blade, Clara, at least really easily, because they haven't, you know, used many tickets, and also, you know, just stuff like Jing Yuan as well. So a lot of people haven't been able to get their hands on those characters, so they're gonna have to wait to get their hands on their characters. So I think, you know, for those people that, you know, are sort of still struggling to think, even after watching this video, I'd say if you like Topaz and Numby, just go for it, because they're cool, and that's it. So there you have it for whether I think you should or shouldn't summon for Topaz and Numby. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.